We've been talking about what it means for Christians to be known for love instead of hate. Today we're going to talk about snap judgments and assumptions. Let's do it. Have you ever noticed how the brands you buy from say something about the type of person that you are? I'm not sure if that's a good thing, but it is often how it works. I mean, brands have always been a way that people use to express a little bit of themselves, right? Or at least who they want people to think they are. They also tend to represent the group that you're a part of or the one you want to be a part of. For whatever reason, it seems like the brands we buy from, and they build the reputation that we have. Here's why I think that's fascinating. Companies spend billions of dollars each year trying to control their reputations. The look, the smell, the thing that they're known for, those are not accidents. They're carefully decided and crafted. Here's what I mean. I'm going to read a couple reputations, and you say which brand it is. Just do it. Pretty easy, right? Nike. How about the lowest prices always? Walmart. Free music streaming. Spotify. Real people, real videos. It's TikTok, right? Here's my point. Companies hire hundreds of people and spend a lot of money trying to shape something that every one of us has, and we probably don't even spend a whole lot of time thinking about it. That's reputations. Our reputations are made up of all sorts of things, not just the brands we like, and they also bring out all kinds of assumptions about who we are. I mean, just think about the various groups in your school and the assumptions that you've made about people who are part of those groups. Assumptions like every rich kid is blank. All athletes are blank. The smart kids always blank. The cheerleaders are blank. The people with TikTok clout are blank. The band kids are blank. The white, the black, the Hispanic, or the Asian kids are blank. We all tend to fill in the blanks about other people with our own assumptions. Whether we know the person or not, it doesn't matter. We know their reputation, or we build one in our minds for them. And to us, that says more than enough for what we need to know about that person. We may not know anything about them other than the group that they're associated with, and yet suddenly we think we know enough about them to make a snap judgment and ultimately write them off. Let me give you a personal example. When I lived in California, I went on a short-term mission trip to Watts. It's a neighborhood in Los Angeles that has a lot of poverty and has had a lot of difficulties over the years. You may have heard of the riots, the Watts riots of 1965. This was that neighborhood. We were running a VBS for the kids there, and so we walked out through the neighborhood, passing out flyers, just letting everyone know what we were doing and inviting them to come be a part of it. We came up on one corner where there was a man standing there all by himself, and I walked right by him. See, what happened is I made a snap judgment based on what he was wearing, the way he was looking at me, and if I'm honest, the color of his skin as well. I filled in some blanks about this man. Some of them may have been true, some of them not. I don't know. And that was 10 plus years ago. And I still remember what he said as I walked by him. He said, "Just ignore the black man, huh?" And it pains me to this day that I did that. I don't want to be known for that, because that's not who I am. And it makes me ask, where do these judgments and assumptions come from? Why did I do that day? And honestly, I think they come from a lot of places, but there are three that stand out. First, our experiences. We have or hear about experiences of what someone like them did or said to us or to someone we know, right? And then we use those experiences to prejudge that this person right in front of us and what they're like. Second, we have limited perspectives. If we know of something someone did or said that was wrong, we build an entire case around them, about them being a bad person, right? And we take one thing that we don't like about them, and we make a judgment on everything about them. But the fact of the matter is, we don't see the entire story. We have a limited perspective. And third, insecurities. Sometimes our assumptions are formed from our own insecurities. The person we're filling in a blank about has something that we want or we wish we had, right? They have the starting position on the team, the grade we can't seem to get, or the house that our family could never afford, and we can't stand it. We automatically assume the worst about them because they remind us of how far we feel from what we want to be. Our personal experiences, limited perspectives, and insecurities shape our assumptions and cause us to fill in the blanks when we think about other people. This can be a big problem if we want to be known for love rather than hate. Because if we're really honest, filling in the blanks is sometimes just another way to hate on people. Often when we assume something based on our judgment, we don't fill in the blank with something nice about that person, do we? We don't take the time to actually get to know the whole story of a person because we think we have it all figured out. We don't give them that chance to show us who they really are. And I think that was a little bit of what was going on with me and that man in Watts. I didn't give him a chance to let him, or to let me know what he really is about. The ironic part about all of this is that we hate it when someone does this to us. So why don't we just slow down and challenge these assumptions that we have? There's a moment from Jesus' life that may be able to help us here. Jesus was in the middle of a tense encounter with some of the religious leaders in Israel at the time. These teachers of the law, they were a big deal in the religious circles and in society. They had a brand of meticulous obedience to God's law, to the point that they thought they were set apart and even better from other people. So much of it was self-righteousness. And when Jesus came around and started spending time with the people that the religious leaders had branded as sinners, or people who weren't as close to God as they were, things got tense. And then they actually started trying to catch Jesus off guard with questions that they hoped would get him in trouble. Right? They wanted him to slip up and answer something in a way that took away his credibility with the people and would make him look bad. During one of these encounters, after some people had gathered to listen to Jesus teach, the religious leaders caught a woman in an R-rated situation. So they dragged her in front of Jesus to see how he would handle the punishment. And I think what unfolds here shows us a different way to live instead of filling in the blanks about other people's reputations. Check it out. In John chapter 8, starting in verse 3, it says this: "As he was speaking, the teachers of religious law and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in the act of adultery. They put her in front of the crowd. 'Teacher,' they said to Jesus, 'this woman was caught in the act of adultery. The law of Moses says to stone her. What do you say?' They were trying to trap him into saying something they could use against him." Don't miss the awkwardness of this situation. Right, this woman had been caught in the act of some sort of sexual activity with a man that was not her husband, perhaps even someone else's husband. And now she's on trial in front of Jesus and this crowd. The law demanded that this woman be stoned to death. It seems a little harsh to us today, but it was how it was then. And this just meant that people would literally throw stones and rocks at this woman until she died. And so the religious leaders, they came to Jesus assuming they knew the rules and exactly how he was supposed to respond to this woman because of those rules. I mean, after all, the Son of God should know and follow the same rules that God gave in the Old Testament, right? So would he overlook this woman's obvious sin and ignore God's law, which would take away his credibility as a teacher? Or would he allow her to be stoned, causing the crowd to turn on him?
It's a trap!
And the leaders knew it was a trap. That was the point. Let's look at what happens next. Picking up in verse 6 of John chapter 8. It says, "But Jesus stooped down and wrote in the dust with his finger. They kept demanding an answer. So he stood up again and said, 'All right, but let the one who has never sinned throw the first stone.' Then he stooped down again and wrote in the dust. When the accusers heard this, they slipped away one by one, beginning with the oldest, until only Jesus was left in the middle of the crowd with the woman. Then Jesus stood up and said to the woman, 'Where are your accusers? Didn't even one of them condemn you?' 'No, Lord,' she said. And Jesus said, 'Neither do I. Go and sin no more.'" That's a mic drop moment if I've ever seen one, right? I'm not sure we can fully understand the tension that was going on here. These religious leaders who built their brand on appearing better than others and pointing out the sins of others are totally put in their place by Jesus. And basically, Jesus is saying, you're quick to point out what everyone else has gotten wrong. But what about you? Have you ever gotten it wrong? So then, one by one, these leaders realize their plan backfired. Jesus kindly and lovingly releases the woman who is literally afraid for her life and tells her to go in freedom and live her life differently. Can you imagine? I mean, don't miss this. Everyone here was guilty of something, both the religious leaders and this woman. And Jesus had a message for both of them. What is possible for your future is not determined by your past. Not if you're a Pharisee, and not if you're the woman. Both are guilty, and both are free to go. Both had a reputation for being one way, and both could choose to leave the situation as a different person than when they arrived. Man, that is powerful. Jesus didn't let this woman's guilt be the end of her story. He didn't let her mistakes fill in the blanks for her life. Jesus challenged her to change by saying, "Go and sin no more." Because no matter her reputation, he believed that change was possible for her. And that was Jesus' brand, love. He changed everything because he responded in love to everyone in this situation. And it's exactly what you and I should be about too. But isn't it true that sometimes we're more on brand with the religious leaders rather than Jesus? I mean, don't we often fill in the blanks about other people based on their behavior for just one thing, their behavior at one moment in time? I mean, maybe what they did was wrong, and maybe it was just something we didn't like. And then all of a sudden, we've decided that they are a certain way and deserve certain things because of something we prefer or don't prefer. But Jesus' approach to the situation in this story teaches us something very different. Everyone branded this woman as bad. Everyone judged her based on this one thing she had done. Jesus saw her as more than this one thing. Jesus saw her as more than what she had done. He didn't write a story about who she was because of that one thing, because of what she got caught doing. There was no denying it. Jesus didn't fill in a blank for her, even though he knew everything about her. He saw her as a whole person. And as a whole person, he saw her as being deserving of another chance. Jesus showed that we are more than the assumptions or judgments of others. That we are worthy of forgiveness, grace, and a second chance because of his love for us. Jesus showed that we ought to extend the same forgiveness, grace, and love to others too. I mean, what if this was the approach that you and I started to take when forming our opinions of other people? I mean, what if instead of filling in the blanks with assumptions or judgments, we chose to assume the best about someone and judge everyone as people, not just as their actions? What would that look like? I mean, what if we choose to see them as worthy of being loved? What if we chose to let love fill in the blank? I mean, this would change a lot, right? It would change a lot about the way we think about and treat other people, wouldn't it? Not only that, but this would also change a lot about the way we think of ourselves, too. We may wind up realizing that we're not as terrible as maybe we think we are. Or maybe we're not as terrible as other people think we are, right? Or other people have made us to feel, at least. And we also may realize that maybe we're not as perfect as we think we are. There's something both encouraging and humbling about Jesus' approach. I mean, it puts all of us on the same level. We are all people that God loves and people that Jesus died to forgive and set free. Not just the sum total of our actions or the way that we're perceived. In other words, when we fill in the blank about someone with assumptions or judgment, we are only seeing one part of that person. Maybe it's their actions. Maybe it is whatever they did that was wrong. Maybe it was something we just don't like. But we're only seeing a sliver. But when we fill in the blank with love, we are seeing others as humans. More than what they have or haven't done, we see them as individuals worthy of love, grace, and forgiveness. So when the opportunities for assumptions and judgments start flying at you, take these steps for a new approach. First, stop and think about how others have filled in the blanks about you. I mean, when you make an assumption about someone, about how they are or what they will do, stop. Stop and think about your own life. Have you experienced someone filling in the blank about you? How did that make you feel? Not good. So remember, Jesus' forgiveness brought you to a place where your life started to change for the better. Then treat other people the way Jesus has treated you, with grace and love, assuming their best days are yet to come. And next, think about how you've wrongly filled in the blanks for someone else. Who is someone you think you know, but you really don't? Who have you filled the blanks in for in a negative way without learning their whole story, without taking the time to get to know them? I mean, what if instead of filling in the blanks about that person with assumptions, you fill in the blanks with what you do know? And then start to get in the habit of challenging those assumptions. Because now you do know the way that Jesus sees people, right? I mean, Jesus sees people as deserving of love, deserving of grace, and deserving of kindness. And we can have those same eyes for others. Look, everybody judges, everybody makes assumptions, okay? We all need to ease up on those assumptions and judgments. But when it comes to the church and church people, man, getting this right is even more important. I mean, if you find yourself thinking things like, she doesn't belong here, or I don't belong here, or he'll never change, I'll never change, or people like that always fill in the blank. Here's the thing. Statements like those, as easy as they are to say, they have no Jesus in them. and so they should have no place in us. If we're the church, if we're following Jesus, we need to imitate his ways. So what if you choose to fill in the blanks with Jesus' brand of compassion? And when we choose to follow Jesus' example and take these steps, we're choosing to let love fill in the blank instead of our quick and shallow assumptions and judgments. I mean, Jesus' example shows us how to form healthy opinions of others by filling in the blanks about them with love, not hate, using grace and truth. I mean, just imagine, what would happen if this is how we spent our time forming opinions of those around us? Instead of assumptions, stereotypes, and preconceived notions based on one part of a person, every opinion we form about others would be all about how worth loving they are, how worthy of love they are. I mean, if this is really what Jesus is about, doesn't it cause you to be a little bit more interested in his ways, in his brand? We can be people who let love fill in the blank about others. When we do this, we will be people known for our love of others, just like Jesus was, just like Jesus intended his people to be. Thanks for watching. See you next time.